This is The Drive with Dale Lolley and Matt Williamson on your 24/7 home of the black and gold. SNR, Steelers Nation Radio.
And welcome to The Drive. I am Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson, and it is a Wednesday here in Pittsburgh. That means, Matt, that we have our first practice report of the week here for both the Steelers and the Browns, who they play Sunday at Acrisure Stadium. And the Steelers' injury list is pretty extensive, but most of these are resting veteran players.
Makes sense this time of year. We're into December, you know.
They also practiced indoors today, which a lot of times they will rest guys.
Yeah, the Cam Haywards of the world, right.
Old knees get rested when they practice indoors because it's a little tougher on the knees.
Don't overreact to this, folks.
No.
Yeah.
So that would include Mike Williams, Najee Harris, Minkah Fitzpatrick, Isaac Seumalo, Michael Pruitt, T.J. Watt, Cam Hayward, and Larry Ogunjobi. Watt was limited today.
Okay.
Guys who practiced in a limited fashion were Calvin Austin III.
Good. That's good news, folks.
Yeah, that's the first step in returning from concussion protocol. Alex Highsmith with the ankle was limited, and Montravius Adams also limited with the knee.
Those seem like the three to watch. You know, those are the guys we don't know for sure will be there for Sunday.
Corey Trice was a full participant today, although they haven't yet activated him off of
I would imagine he's active for game day, don't you think?
I don't know because dude hasn't played in 2 months.
Quite a while, right.
Yeah.
I don't know what he is on special teams. I mean, they're pretty happy with their gunners, I'm sure. I don't think he'd crack that. I wonder if Porter or Jackson were to get hurt, does Sutton kick out, or would that be Trice's job? I mean, that would be his path.
Pierre is still.
And Pierre's in the mix, too.
So the question is, and Beanie Bishop, are you going to keep 6 cornerbacks active on game day?
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, especially if he's so-so on teams or, not established. Interesting.
So that's where they're at with that. Looking at the Cleveland side of things, Joel Bitonio with an ankle was a full participant. Harden, the cornerback with a tibia, was limited. Maurice Hurst, or Michael Hurst, I assume. Michael Hurst? Maurice Hurst. They put initials here. Like you're supposed to just know everybody. He has an ankle. He was limited. Kamara, the defensive tackle, had a concussion, did not participate. Jerry Jeudy with the knee was a full participant. Elijah Moore with a shoulder, a limited participant. Greg Newsome with an abdomen, limited participant. Cedric Tillman with a concussion did not practice today.
Okay, he's been out a while.
Yeah, since the Steeler game.
Yeah.
Juan Thornhill with calf did not practice.
Okay.
James Thrash with the shoulder did not practice. And Jedrick Wills with a knee did not practice.
I don't know if he's ever going to play for the Browns
I don't think
again.
he will.
He just seems like they're put him on ice. Side note, while you're saying that, my phone just popped up. They put Trevor Lawrence on injured reserve, too. I bet
the Browns. That would be
I know. I bet his season's over as well. That gruesome hit, right.
They've got 4 games left, so yes, his season would be over.
It's done. Who are we most concerned with the Brownies there?
I think Thornhill would be a loss for them.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Safety. Yeah.
We'll see about Newsome if he is able to go or not. Okay. That would be a big loss. And
maybe I missed it, but was Ward not on there?
Ward's not on there.
I thought he might have broke his forearm watching that game. The way he just went off late in the game, but apparently not. So they didn't say much about it. That was just my observation.
Yeah. So that's where they're at. And Tillman not. If Tillman doesn't play, that's a big deal, especially since Thrash is also hurt.
Yeah, and Tillman's a much better player. Yeah.
So we'll see about that. But overall, not awful.
No, not awful for either team.
Yeah.
I mean, the Steelers could be getting guys back, which is fun.
Yeah, always fun.
Yeah.
Always fun to get guys back. Looking at this game even a little bit more, Dustin Hopkins is not good.
No, he's a real problem.
Real problem for them. Did you see, by the way, the Bengals put McPherson on IR?
Oh, really? I was about to say, AFC North kickers aren't doing so great
They've
this
been
year.
missing kicks again,
They've been missing a lot of kicks. Not the one here, but I wonder if that's going to be popping up on Hard Knocks here one of these days.
So I tweeted this out yesterday, Matt, actually. The leading kicker now all time in terms of field goal percentage. Do you know who it is now?
Is it Fairbairn?
No. This has changed now. This is the third time.
No,
we have our third change atop the standings all time.
So it's not the Panther guy anymore.
No, he missed a couple of kicks, and he's now at 88.525.
Okay.
Just ahead of Boswell. Boswell has actually moved up to 4th.
He's moving up the list?
Yeah.
Okay.
He started the season at 6th. He's now 4th. Harrison Butker is benefiting from not kicking
He's just
right
sitting
now.
there just not swinging his leg, moving up the chart. He's had a good career. That makes sense.
89.212%. Tucker's at 89.032%. This one season has dropped he was at over 91%.
That's how bad he's been 1 year.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Pinero's at 88.525, and Boswell's at 87.748.
No, good for Butker. I do respect the outdoor kickers that deal with elements and winds and stuff like that a little bit more for sure, too. You know, Pinheiro and Koo and those guys have it easy.
Yeah. And Pinheiro, that's the weird thing about this. Like, Pinheiro was atop the list. He's only been in the league like 6 years. Yeah. But he's kicked for 3 teams. And he's the all-time
best or whatever, right? Whenever you said that last week or whatever, I was like, really? He doesn't seem like he's even a standout, you know?
Yeah, he's one of these names is not like the others because the top 5 all-time are Butker, Tucker, Boswell, Daniel Carlson with the Raiders.
They're all
and Pinheiro.
High-quality kickers, yeah.
Nobody would include Pinheiro in that group.
No, and I don't know a ton about the other kickers, you know, other than like Tucker and Boz, but my hunch is he just isn't a real big leg guy. You know, he just kick a lot of short ones.
Well, that's what's happened. The guy in Tennessee this year. He's not kicking he's made missed 1 kick or 2 kicks, whatever it is. Yeah, but he doesn't try anything.
Try the hard ones, right?
Yeah,
I mean Boswell's misses. 1 was blocked and 2 were far. Yeah.
But anyway, I just thought that again, when you look at the breakdown of this Browns team, they lost that game the other night by 9 points. Mm-hmm. He missed a kick. Yeah. Otherwise, the
game goes differently, right?
2 pick sixes.
They gave some stuff away, obviously.
Which is what bad football teams do.
Yeah, and they really don't run the ball well at all.
They don't even try.
They don't really even try anymore. Yeah,
the numbers since Jameis Winston has taken over.
Pass. Yeah.
Yeah, their passing stuff is just shot through. Like he started 1 fewer game than Russell Wilson has, but he's thrown like 60 more passes.
Okay. I'm like he's already passed like Watson. It's not even close.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at he's thrown in his what is it here? Where's it at? He's played in 10 games, but he's only started 5. Mm-hmm. But he's already thrown 230 passes. Watson in 7 starts threw 216.
Yeah. I mean and the yardage is way crazy different than the touchdowns. And I'm admittedly somewhat of a Winston apologist. I mean, I enjoy his style of play. But he's throwing the ball too much. I mean, yes, he throws picks, and yes, he's aggressive, and we all know that about him. But you could help the guy out a little bit and not have him throw a bazillion times. But the run game's bad.
His interception percentage is 3.0. Mm-hmm. If you start looking at the overall league, I mean, that puts him like top 5.
Worst. Yeah.
As bad as Deshaun Watson was this year, his interception percentage is 1.4.
The real knock on Watson is just turning down throws.
Yeah.
I mean, he would just dump it down, not try anything. I mean, the anti-Winston.
Yeah. They need a happy medium there.
Yeah. The next-gen stats, the NFL Pro stuff had some stuff about Winston, too, today. He throws past the sticks at an alarming rate. I mean, at a really high level. And he's done well, but the Steelers happen to be one of the best teams defending past the sticks, and they have 11 interceptions when teams throw past the sticks. So his aggression, if I was in charge of the Browns, I'd be like, you got to reel it in a little for this.
Dial back a little bit, yeah. So he's averaging per reception 12.5 yards per reception, and Watson was at 8.4, and that still comes in less than what we've seen with Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson's averaging a 13.2 yards per completion.
Yeah, wow.
So
we have a guest.
We do.
Yeah.
So we're joined at this time by
he's
here.
He's here.
I'm just completely.
These guys are texting us and waving at us, and I'm like, all right, yeah.
Sorry. So we'll finish up the segment here, but yeah. So Wilson is also aggressive as a thrower.
Oh yeah. I mean, he's pushed the ball down the field,
but he's more deliberate with it. then
he's smarter about it.
Yeah, he's smarter about it.
He really is. There's no question about it. I mean, like the last Winston interception, I don't kill him for because I'm trying to win the game. You know, right?
It was a bad pick, though.
It was a bad pick. I mean, but the other ones, like, what are you doing? And over his career, it just shows.
That's just who he is.
He's just going to let it fly.
Yeah. And if you look at the days in Tampa when he was throwing 30 interceptions in a season, there was a hope that, maybe those couple of years in New Orleans would kind of coach that out of him. It didn't.
No. I mean, I think that's kind of why he went there wisely, is let's learn from Breeze and that crew and all those guys. And no, it did not.
It did not help.
No,
he's still that guy.
He's a lot like Flacco was last year with the Browns.
Yeah.
Just slinging it all over.
Just throw it all over the place. And sometimes it's good. You're going to see some good.
Oh, yeah.
But you're also going to see some bad.
A lot.
A lot of bad. But let's get to a break. He is the Matt Williamson. I'm Dale Lolley. You're listening to The Drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. When Matt and I come back, we'll be joined by Jimmy Rooney. Of course, he has released the audio version of his book, A Different Way to Win, Dan Rooney's story from the Super Bowl to the Rooney Rule. Lots of good stuff there. We'll get to that right after this. And welcome back. I am Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson, and we're pleased to be joined now by Jim Rooney. Of course, wrote the book, A Different Way to Win, Dan Rooney's story from Super Bowl to the Rooney Rule. And for people that don't know, of course, Dan was your father. And you wrote this book a couple of years ago, and I remember reading it then, and there's lots of good stuff in there. But you've now taken this to another level with the audio version.
Right. So, Dale, thanks for having me, Matt. Good to see you.
Absolutely.
So we wrote the book, and we really thought we put a good product together, telling my dad's story. But we always wanted to do an audio version, and our publisher said, well, let's make it sort of a cross between, they call it an audio original, but it's sort of a cross between a podcast and an audiobook. So I will read a chapter, and then at the end of the chapter, I'll have a conversation with someone who was pertinent in that chapter. So we talked to Roger Goodell, we talked to Paul Tagliabue, we talked to my brother Art, we talked to Rocky, we talked to Franco, which was amazing that we got Franco and the time we got Franco. Mel Blount is in the book. James Shaq Harris, the great quarterback for the Rams and the Bills, is in the book. Joe Green is the intro, and then at the beginning is Bill Cowher, and the end is Mike Tomlin, and I did that on purpose. So it's kind of a you hear the stories, but you also get sort of an intimate connection that's different than when you read the book.
Okay. You mentioned a bunch of Steeler folks there, obviously tons of players. Is there anyone from outside the league, that part of it? Because obviously he did a lot more than just own the team too,
Right. So we took a lot out from in the original book. There's a section on my father's work in Ireland, and the publisher decided we want to focus on the football audience, and the story around football and business. So there's not that, but we have several folks who were involved in the Rooney Rule, which is the NFL's diversity hiring policy. Folks sort of, if you will, on both sides of the fence of that issue. We really wanted to try and get people to say, I think this is working, I don't think this is working. So we have several folks there, and that was really important. But I also think fundamentally getting the stories from, particularly Joe, Franco, Rocky, and Mel, each of them, and I guess Bill and Mike, each of them tell a story about my father in a way that shows how he mentored them and how now, many years later in life, they use these lessons in things, the Mel Blount Youth Home. Mel says he uses those decisions all the time.
Yeah, and I'm sure you and your brothers. I mean, you're always influenced by your father. You probably do a lot of the things that you do without even thinking about it because of the way your dad did it. But to hear it from somebody else, like how he affected them, I'm sure is really interesting as well.
Yeah, it is because my father was he was a successful businessman, and he was accountable, he was transparent, he was reliable, he was all those things. But then the stories of my grandfather and then my father, you hear that warmth that people describe in them and how that has allowed, Rocky talks about getting cut by the Steelers. He got cut when he came back from Vietnam, and that my father called him and said, look, we made a mistake, Rock. We expected to invite you back to camp next year, but we want to put you on IR. We want our doctors to be able to support you all year. We want you to be able to work out in our training room. all those things that would help Rocky become, such a critical part of Steelers history, and sort of the warmth and connection that he relates that story, I think is really impactful when you listen to it.
Yeah, and those are the things that you talk about. Things like that are what are considered the Steelers' way of doing things. Because that doesn't happen everywhere, guys. Things happen, and we'll see you.
Yep. Well, and we all know this. We all everyone in this room spends a fair amount of time around there, but there is a real challenge, and clearly we don't get it perfect all the time, but of being tough, of having those really high standards, of setting that expectation, and then you see, in Hard Knocks last night, you see Mike Tomlin give George Pickens a hug after a mistake, and that's how my grandfather did it. I think that's how my father did it, and it's tricky. I think my observation of it, it took more work. It would be easy to just be a hard ass.
You're allowed.
And just say, okay, let's go.
We'll let it slide.
Right. Let's just go do this. Let's push. Let's always be about these things. And I think people quit after that. I mean, Dale, I consider you and I young. We've been around here 100 years now, but I think that's part of it. Like, I hope you enjoy coming to work as part of this organization, because it's not just, hit the clock in and out.
Yeah,
and,
for
and
sure.
when you create a culture like that, I think it sustains success longer.
Yeah, one thing that always strikes me as maybe different is that after every game, win or loss, I would see your dad in shaking all the players' hands. And now I see Art doing the same thing, shaking everybody's hand and thanking them after a game, win or lose. It doesn't matter. It could be the Super Bowl, could be a game in Cleveland on last Thursday night where they lose. It doesn't matter. There's still that human element to everything.
And so we write about that in the book, and I spent a lot of time talking in a couple different players in the original book, which we did more interviews for, which aren't in the audio, but they mentioned that he would walk up and down the aisle of the plane after a loss, and someone, I forget exactly who said this, sorry, but they said, like, he was doing it in a way to show us all that things like that are going to happen, that in order to get on to the next game, what we said with George Pickens, in order to get on to that next play, you got to be able to get over. And if the boss is screaming and ranting and throwing things, then everyone else thinks, well, that's how you would react when something goes bad.
Yeah, and your dad was always even keeled with everything. Maybe not so much. I don't know how he was at home with the kids and everything.
I was going to ask about home. Was he able to get to your little league games and stuff? I mean, obviously a very busy man,
Yeah, no, I've said this many times. I'm glad you said that, Matt and Dale. You're so involved with baseball. My father probably made 10 of 100 little league games, and I always say, would I trade the 4 Super Bowl championships and the times we had in the 70s for that? And I missed them. But there was something about going to his office that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Yeah, and getting a chance to be part of this. So it was a trade-off, but I think the hard work he put in, meant something to all of us, and I think means something to this community.
So I'm curious about your father. I mean, at what age did he start to get involved with the family business, and in what capacity? How did his role in the organization grow, and when did it start?
Yeah, well, the chief, my grandfather, was he was a great promoter. There's a way that some people tell this. Some people tell the stories that he did everything. Other people say, oh, he couldn't do anything. He was really good at sports promotion, and he was great at boxing, which is an event-based, you promote that event.
Okay.
He was never the best at an operator. My dad, the day he passed, could probably tell you, how many Cokes were in every concession stand at the stadium. My father was an operator, really understood how you look long-term at a business and what are the mechanisms to make that work. So he started doing that in college. He
about the business side.
Right.
Of the Steelers.
He was managing training camp. Joe Carr was a gentleman who was our ticket manager and really managed kind of those things. And my dad started with him in 52, 53 at 23 years old, and by 1960, Dad really was the chief operating officer, and then really with Chuck Noll is sort of the time we say he started making the executive decisions.
Well, the book again came out a couple of years ago, and again I think did really well for you. And I expect the audio version of this as well to do well with the interviews that you got with this. When you started to put this together, did you have the audiobook in mind at the beginning and like, okay, some of this stuff is really good, but I can't get it into the book?
Yeah. So, well, it actually started with Dad being alive, and we wanted to do something for like the Harvard Business Review, one of those hardcore business journals, and talk about this leadership style, its impact on football, its impact on diversity, and some of the things that were really important to him, and Ireland, and sort of the community side. Then when he passed, it was actually Paul Tagliabue, the former commissioner, said, we got to turn this into a book because we had so many notes. And so when we turned it into a book, I always thought, well, we'll do audio. And then COVID happened, and that became a blessing in disguise because I couldn't get into a studio. And so everything kind of stopped for a while. And then the publisher said, podcasts have become such a big thing. What do you think about this idea? And I'm like, this is perfect for this book because, you hear me for 5 hours, but trust me, getting to Franco and getting to Rocky, getting these other guys is much more entertaining.
Oh, absolutely.
Than hearing me read for 5 hours. I hope people enjoy it. But you know what I mean? There's real color that they give that's different.
Well, I'm sure that they will. And where can they listen to this and hear it?
Yep. So anywhere you download audiobooks, so Amazon, which is Audible, iBooks, which is through Apple, Google Play, and then BarnesandNoble.com are the largest places where people download audiobooks.
Great, okay. Great. And this is perfect for, let's say you're driving Christmas to Philadelphia for the game in a couple of weeks here.
Well, there's a holiday coming around too. Yeah.
Well, it's funny because people keep saying, "Is this a good holiday gift?" And I keep saying, and Wolf the other day when I did a little thing with him, he said, "Well, that's not your father." I said, "Oh no, when he drove us to Florida, he thought the same." When you're in the car for 5 hours with your family, you might want an audiobook. I think this is a good one.
I have one more question too. I mean, we referenced it, and maybe not even all of our younger listeners remember, but your father was the ambassador to Ireland. That's an amazing opportunity, of course. I mean, did he love it, but did he also miss being away from the team?
No, because he called me at 5:30. He called Kevin at 6. He called Art at 6:30. He called Mike at 7. I mean, every morning.
He was pretty tuned in.
He was tuned in.
Okay.
And he flew once. I think Dale. I think you know this. Matt, you may. We played the Giants. He flew from Ireland, went to the game, and was at his desk in Ireland the next morning.
Oh wow.
So he was 79 years old. I mean, I can't, I hate getting off the plane in Charlotte after an hour.
Yeah. But did he miss being in the office every day? I mean, it sounds like he kept tabs on things.
He did, but he really loved Ireland, and it was great. It was great. It was important. I think it helped the organization start to move beyond him. I mean, I love my father. I wrote a book about him, but you have to change. You have to evolve, and I think it was a good interim step for the organization. And he had just such love for Ireland and all the things that were going on there. And everyone that talks about his work in Ireland, it's like Dale's story about my dad in Pittsburgh. He was over there within 6 weeks. Everyone in Embassy Dublin thought, this is the greatest ambassador we've ever had. He's got 50 new projects going. It was a great experience.
I can still remember going over when the Steelers played the Bears over there, and your dad having things set up. We got to go here, and then we got to go there, and it was just so interesting to see. He was like he was in his element.
Yeah.
Had such a great respect and love of the country there, and that's why it's going to be maybe cool next year if they actually end up playing a game there. We'll see.
Yep. We're keeping our fingers crossed. I'm hearing good news though.
Yeah. So that'll be something to look
forward to. And another Dan Rooney. My nephew is been putting that project together.
He's been spearheading that. Yeah.
Cool to see him over there.
Yeah. It's really cool. And I can remember like people just when I was out and about, and people are like, well, why are these two teams playing here? I'm like, well, you got to understand the background here, what's going on. But it was such a cool event. And, the possibility of being able to do that again, I'm sure your dad will be smiling on that.
Can I tell one more?
Go right ahead.
Yeah.
So the coolest thing he did, he did really several things that were really special from an Irish-American standpoint. But, every year at every embassy in the globe, you have a baseball game on the 4th of July. Well, he said, we're having a football game. So, and this wasn't at taxpayers' expenses. We got sponsors and everything, but he had this mini Super Bowl at the residence in Dublin. And we had jumbotrons, and I was an announcer. Art was the coach of one team. My brother Dan was the coach of the other. I think they almost got in a fist fight at the end of the game. But it was mainly the Marines who would play. And the first year we went over, this was, I still kind of brings tears to my eyes. So where the Steelers symbol is at the middle of the stadium, he put the seal of the United States of America. And we brought the Marines out the first time to see it. And they just had such a gleam in their eye that he thought of them like this, and that he really made something special for the Marines who were serving in Ireland during that time. And that was a really cool, Dan Rooney touch of getting let's do something a little special for these guys.
And he just had a way of doing stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah, so that's great. Again, the book is A Different Way to Win, Dan Rooney's story from the Super Bowl to the Rooney Rule. That's by Jim Rooney. You can check that out. You can also go to adifferentwaytowin.com and actually still buy the regular book too, right?
You can buy the regular book, and at one of these sites, I should know these things, the publisher is doing a contest, so there's Steeler goodies, you get merchandise. I think there's autographed footballs. I think they're going to raffle all that stuff off around the Super Bowl.
Very cool.
I'm horrible. I think I can tell the story and I could write the book, but every time they ask me to do this, I don't have the details on it.
Didn't get your grandfather's promoting skills.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
Well, Jimmy, we appreciate you stopping by. And again, it's a great book. I read it when it first came out, and I might have to go back and read it again.
Yeah.
Maybe listen to it.
Listen to it.
Yeah, maybe I'll do that while I'm driving to Philadelphia.
Right. Yeah. It's fun. I know Steeler folks will like it because the interviews are so good.
Yeah, absolutely. But we're going to get to a break.
Thank you, guys.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks for stopping by. He's Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley. You're listening to The Drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. Matt and I will be back with more right after this. And welcome back. I am Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson. I'd like to thank Jimmy Rooney for stopping by and talking about his book there. You can, in the audiobook, you can still get those. But now, we're joined by another guest on the Justin Miller Hotline here. We have the Dean of Doom, the Lord of Living in His Fears. Bob Labriola joins us. Bob, the editor of Steelers Digest and Steelers.com. How you doing, Labs?
Nothing to be living in your fears about now.
Really, nothing? You got a game against the Browns this week, and they just beat the Steelers a couple of weeks ago. You feeling a little more confident after watching the Steelers go out and put up 44 points in Cincinnati on Sunday? Is that have a little something to do with maybe a little of the optimism?
Yeah, and the way the defense played too. It was what I would call the kind of defense you're going to need to be able to play against good teams in December and January. And the Steelers happen to have a lot of good teams on their schedule in December too. You're not going to be able to shut teams down. That a lot of fans think, I'd just go back to 1976 and, shut out 5 teams and give up 28 points in 9 games. That doesn't exist anymore. That brand of football has been outlawed by the league, legislatively and the way it's officiated. And so that's over. To me, good defense now is being dynamic in situations. 5-6 plays usually can be the difference in a game and the outcome of a game between 2 good teams. And if you have a couple free takeaways, couple key sacks, those kind of plays, that's good defense. That's good enough to win those games, and really that's all you need to do: survive and advance. This is, in my mind, it's not officially the playoffs, but that mindset, I think, will serve them well if they adopt it, starting last Sunday and maintaining it now through the next couple of months.
You're so bright and cheery. I hate to bring the mood down, but one thing that concerns One of my concerns with this team, and it's minimal, but I mean, if we're talking playoff football and these teams ahead, going to Philly, hosting Kansas City, AFC North football, is they run the ball a lot, but I'd like to see more rushing efficiency. I'd like to see them do it better.
Well, I mean, I didn't, certainly, but what I'm saying is, if your offense is doing what the offense did last week in Cincinnati, that's good enough. If you want to nitpick, if you have Najee Harris on your fantasy team or something, and you want to nitpick that, hey, I'm not going to argue with you, but I don't know that it's necessary that to beat the Eagles, you got to outrush them.
No, maybe I phrased the question wrong. I mean, I think it's just there's always room for improvement. If you're the best team in the league,
absolutely.
And that would be something I'd like to see heading into the playoffs.
Oh, there's no question that there are things that need to be better. I'm not, but I mean, I just find it very difficult to nitpick that game against the Bengals. I understand their defense isn't very good, but that's what like Tunch Bilkin always said, if you can't beat the stiffs, you are one. And so you got a bad Bengals defense, you put up 44 points on them. That's exactly what needs to happen.
And I don't know that the offenses from the past couple of years would have.
Oh, there's
no question.
No.
Right.
I'm going back pre-Ben's elbow surgery, too.
Yeah, well, I mean, you had to go back to 2018 when it was the last time they had over 500 yards. 2018 was the last time they scored, that many points. I mean, that was pre-Ben's elbow stuff. It was a different era.
Well, yeah, and the offensive performance too, beyond the yards and the points, to me, which I thought was special. Special was pick six, losing 7-0. They go 70 yards and whatever, how many plays, tie the game.
I think it was like 6 plays. It was just like bang, 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 bang. Yeah.
Whatever. Then the next time, Cincinnati scores, goes up 14-7, 70 yards in 10 plays, another touchdown, ties the game. The Bengals score again. The next drive, 68 yards in 5 plays. Najee Harris runs it in, ties the game again. When you're doing that kind of not only the efficiency and the production by the offense, but the way it was timed, you suck the life out of the opponent, I believe, because they don't. It's like being in a heavyweight fight. You think you got a guy on the ropes, and he comes off the ropes and tags you a couple of times, and all of a sudden you're back in the middle of the ring. That happens to you a few times. You just think, what? Like Paulo Creed said, he turned to his corner. What's up with this guy? He keeps coming. So, those are kinds of the things that I'm talking about too, in terms of, look, I'm not predicting a Super Bowl or a Super Bowl championship, a parade in downtown Pittsburgh, any of that stuff. I don't want to misrepresent what I'm saying here. I just think that what happened in Cincinnati, and especially on the heels of what happened in Cleveland, to me said a lot about this team, and a lot, and in my mind, everything about it that it said was good.
The other thing that it did, Bob, is one thing that we heard, one of the criticisms of the last few off seasons. The Steelers' quarterback room is the worst quarterback room in the AFC North. And I always countered that it wasn't because Cleveland existed. Mm-hmm. But secondly, you can't possibly go into a game against Lamar Jackson or Joe Burrow and expect your quarterback to be better than those two guys and win the game for you. And in 2 of the last 3 weeks, we've seen Russell Wilson be better than Lamar Jackson, and we've seen him be better than Joe Burrow. And Burrow played great Sunday.
He was phenomenal, yeah.
But yes, Wilson was better.
And I believe Joe Burrow's the best quarterback in the division. That's been my feeling for a while now. No, all due respect to Lamar Jackson, but I just think Burrow is. If I had to pick one quarterback out of the AFC North that I thought could take my team to a championship, Burrow would be my first pick.
By the way, did you see he just bought a $3 million Batmobile?
I saw it on Hard Knocks last night. Yeah.
So Lamar Jackson might be Superman right now, but Joe Burrow's Batman.
Yeah.
Yeah, officially too.
Great.
But so anyway, yeah, I again, the Bengals defense stinks, but that offense is world class.
Yeah.
What was it? What are the 10 times they've scored 30 points this year, or some ridiculous 7, 8, whatever it is?
They've lost 4 games now in which they've scored at least 33 points. The rest of the league has lost 2 of those.
And there's no question in my mind that the Steelers won that game in Cincinnati by outscoring the Bengals.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, if you had to, label it, or, 5 words or less, they outscored them in a shootout. And you outscore a team. I get that you have to outscore the opponent every time to win. I know that's how the rules actually work. But I'm talking about an offense that's putting up the kind of points that offense is putting up. If you outscore them to win, then I think that's a very, very positive turn of events.
And it's significant, Bob, because I can remember, going from 94 into 95, taking the way back trip here. I can remember a game in Chicago where the Steelers had to win a shootout like that against the Bears, and they won it in overtime. And that's when I thought, this team they might have something here, because the year before that, they wouldn't, even though the defense was fantastic. If the defense had an off day and the opposing team scored a bunch of points, or you were playing the 49ers, or you were playing one of those teams that could score a bunch of points, you probably weren't going to win unless the defense just played out of its mind. Well, this is a similar situation here. People were down on the defense in this game. I'm like, the defense made a bunch of plays in this game to help them win this game, but you needed you had to have both. You couldn't just be a defense. You weren't going to win this 17-16. That was not realistic. It was going to be a higher scoring game, and your offense showed that it's capable of doing those things.
Coming out throwing, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think there's going to be any 17-16 games the rest of the 2024 season.
Well, they do play the Ravens again. Those just always seem to be that.
Yeah, I know, but they're it could be in the mid-20s. I don't think no touchdowns
it's just
in
not
Baltimore
realistic.
beats the Ravens again.
Yeah,
right.
Right. It's just not.
Six field goals isn't going to get it done.
Right. You're going to have to score touchdowns.
Unless their guy's missing 3 kicks again.
Even with that. But yeah, we haven't seen this kind of offense. As I said, you were throwing out the stats from 2018, which was pre elbow surgery. I mean, it's been that long. I mean, 2018, that's what, 6 years ago. In NFL years, that's careers for a lot of people.
That's a generation.
Yes. So again, and Russell Wilson showed why, he was signed by the Steelers when he became available. He showed why he was given the pole position. He showed why you make the move despite being 4-2 with Justin Fields, because you have to be able to do a lot of the things that he was doing last Sunday in these games, as Mike Tomlin says, as the road gets narrow. And, the Steelers have that. And he is also a guy, Russell Wilson is, he is inclusive. He is positive. He's a leader. He does all of those things. And I just think that even when Pickett had a good game, he never had that presence with his teammates. He was young, and you need some experience. He
brings a little gravitas to the position. Every guy, especially the offensive guys who are mostly young guys, they all grew up watching Russell Wilson play.
Right.
You know, he's been in the league for 13 years. You go back 13 years on, say, Pat Fryermuth, he was 12. You know?
Played Madden with Wilson.
Yeah, they played Madden with this guy.
So, yeah, I mean, so anyway, I think we're on the same page, except for Matt, being Debbie Downer.
So
taking my job away from me, but that's okay.
So it looks like Alex Highsmith's set to return, hopefully, this game. But Herbig has been unbelievable. Preston Smith's been a nice addition. Watt is Watt. I mean, how do you handle that position? There's not enough playing time to go around.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I'm not worried about that, and I don't think any of those guys are either. Mm-hmm. Alex Highsmith is more than just his sack total, and I do believe, this will be the first time they've had those top three guys together since the Chargers game.
Yeah,
which was September 22nd.
They're also 6-0 when they have Alex Highsmith and 3-3 when they don't.
So it's the first time the four of them have been active together, right? Yeah.
And to me the pass rush was inadequate on Thursday night in Cleveland. Now I understand there were circumstances with climate and footing and visibility and all that stuff, but in my mind on Sunday, you just rotate those guys through there and torture the Browns pass protection as much as possible. And you got to do a better job of getting after Jameis, because, you need bad Jameis to show up again. As he said, something about I'm praying to God to deliver me from the pick sixes or something like that after that.
God must not like him very much.
Yeah.
Right.
Pray harder.
But I mean, that's Jameis Winston is a gunslinger kind of guy, and he's gonna keep throwing it. He's gonna keep trying to make plays. He's gonna be pushing the ball down the field. He's not going to be dumping it off. He's not going to be throwing it out of bounds on this, just to, instead of trying to force the ball in there somewhere or make a play. So, get after him and, take advantage of who he is in a much more consistent fashion than you were able to do on Thursday night in Cleveland. The Browns game, I like when it is, because I think that, and it was embarrassing. It had to be embarrassing.
Well, there was not a happy face in that locker room after that loss. I can tell you that. They were pretty ticked off.
I think it's good that they're playing him so soon after, too.
Yes, right, because it still stings. I mean, it was humbling, I thought. It had to be, because I thought in a lot of ways the Steelers got handled on both lines of scrimmage. And you can't have that against Cleveland. I mean, you can't have that, period. But against whatever they were, 2-8 at the time, Tomlinson, that interior defensive lineman, he was too much of a problem in that game, and then doing it, the other way. I thought that the Cleveland offensive line, they protected when they had to, and they carved open some holes for people running the ball that wasn't always a running back. People running the ball in some critical situations. So there's plenty of payback fodder there for the Steelers, and it's fodder that they don't like to. They don't like to lose for sure, but getting out physical is, I think, 10 times worse.
Yeah, and I think that's why there were so many of those down faces in that one, because that does not sit well with those guys at all, and you can guarantee that it does not sit well with the coaching staff that happens. But Labs, we got to let you go here. We're at the top of the hour. We appreciate you dropping by at a little different time today, but we appreciate your understanding with that. He is Bob Labriola, the Dean of Doom, the Lord of Living in His Fears, and I'll see you on Sunday, Bob, in the press box. He's Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley. This is The Drive on the Steelers Audio Network. Matt and I will be back with hour number 2 right after this. Welcome back. I am Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson, and this is The Drive on the Steelers Audio Network. And, of course, you can hear The Drive every Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. right here on these very airwaves, or you can download the Steelers mobile app and listen to the show on there. You can also watch it on Steelers YouTube channel, and you can then leave us remarks or comments or tell us how dumb we are, how smart we are, how handsome we are.
We get that.
That's not going to happen.
That happens too often.
But anyways, Matt, it's time now to get to the fantasy football focus. This being Wednesday, let's take a look at who is in, who is out this week thus far in practices. Trent Williams with an ankle injury, sidelined on Wednesday. And they're a mess right now.
Some tragedy off the field,
too.
Yeah,
he's dealing with some stuff,
I mean, that team in general just feels cursed this year.
A little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit. Both Darnell Mooney and Drake London this week. Mooney has an Achilles and /rest, did not participate in practice today. Drake London was limited in practice today for the Atlanta Falcons.
And again, folks, just like we opened the first hour, this is Wednesday, and people are getting rested even more than earlier in the season. Don't go crazy, but be aware of this stuff. I think Kirk Cousins is going to get benched.
Eventually, if they fall out of this,
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a game or two from getting the axe.
We're not that long ago from when people were saying the Steelers should have signed Kirk Cousins instead of Russell Wilson.
Yeah. I'm not certain he's even going to be an NFL starter next year.
It's been pretty bad. He does not want to get hit at all.
No, he doesn't protect himself well. I mean, he makes really bad decisions. I think he could end up being like a Flacco as a number 2 or something along those lines. Maybe. Like if I'm the Giants or Raiders, I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah. Baker Mayfield dealing with an Achilles and a knee. He was a full participant in practice on Wednesday, but that you never like to hear that Achilles thing.
No, I was shocked when Mooney had an Achilles. I mean, Achilles is usually out. You know, I mean, like, how do you semi?
That's some soreness. I used to have to deal with that when I was still playing basketball into my 30s, even late 30s, like 3 or 4 times a week.
Mm-hmm.
My Achilles would just be killing me, and I kept waiting for that day when it just went. And rolled up, and I'm like,
Does that mean there's like a tiny partial tear there?
It's just I don't know. It was just general soreness in that Achilles, and I'd take a week off and it would feel better, and then I'd go back and play, and 2 weeks later it's hurting again. It's just not good.
People can't see this at home, but Justin, an Achilles it'll snap and it'll roll all the way up the back of your leg.
Justin doesn't like that.
He's going to pass out. Yeah. He was saying this the other day.
Like the window blind going up.
Yeah, how Achilles give him the willies. Yeah, so he's over there wincing, thinking about.
Bucky Irving, hip and back issues, missed practice on Wednesday.
He's a superstar for fantasy right now. I mean, he's getting all the touches. He's even taking Rashad White's stuff. I mean, that's great signs.
If he doesn't play,
I mean, he had a lot of touches last week.
Yeah,
I mean, he probably just rested him.
But if he doesn't play, White gets.
I think they're both, useful at that point.
Yeah.
I don't think they want to give White a ton of carries.
Yeah,
between the tackle stuff.
Yeah. Tristan Wirfs with the foot and knee unable to practice.
You're right. I mean,
for them, so they're a little banged up.
Like Trent Williams. I mean, he's a difference. He's one of the tackles you got to mention in the fantasy.
Yeah, this is a big game for them this week. Tampa's. They have.
I forget who they have this week, but I was
somebody they should beat.
They have a very easy rest of schedule.
Atlanta's at Minnesota.
Yes, and Atlanta beat them twice head-to-head, so they have to get one game up. And just kind of looking ahead at the schedule, I think they got a pretty decent chance to do it.
Yeah. Mike Evans, hamstring and calf, didn't practice on Wednesday. Who did practice for Tampa?
No one practiced for the Steelers either.
Yeah. But these are all injuries, though. These aren't
they're real ones, right?
Yeah. Alexander Madison with an ankle, limited on Wednesday.
Okay. Is Abdullah the one? Do we know that at this point? Is Sincere going to get a bump?
They signed Sincere McCormick to their active roster. Mm-hmm. He was on their practice squad, and they elevated him. They said, well, we can't do that because somebody's going to probably try to sign him off of that. So they signed him to the active roster. Zamir White with a quad also didn't practice today.
He's had a really bad year, too.
Yeah.
I don't know if he'd even get back in the mix.
So
it might be McCormick.
Yeah. It's a dart throw.
If you got a blank spot
on your roster. Might be a DFS play, but
maybe we should look in the Raider running back stuff before we pick the DFS squad.
Jair Alexander, they play Thursday night. He was ruled out for that Week 14 game against Detroit.
Okay. Their defense has been okay. I mean, the pass rush hasn't been great. Alexander's obviously a difference maker. Huge game.
Romeo Dobbs also ruled out for that game with a concussion.
Okay. I mean, I'm not wishing a concussion on anyone, but it does help clarify the receiver situation a little bit when one of them's out of the mix.
On the plus side of that for Green Bay, Josh Jacobs with the calf injury off the injury report.
Okay. And, folks, just so you know, I mean, the Lions and Packers, this is not a short week for them. This is a full week.
Yeah,
they played Thanksgiving.
Yeah, they both played Thanksgiving, so it's not so bad.
Schedule makers did some good stuff there.
Foster Moreau with the shoulder injury limited on Wednesday. The only reason I mentioned Foster Moreau is that Taysom Hill is out.
Yeah, okay.
So maybe Foster Moreau gets a couple of catches. I doubt it.
Maybe. I mean, I'm sure he'll be out there in 12 personnel, but
yeah.
I wouldn't get too excited about it.
Kendre Miller.
The other tight end there, though, is a chance.
Juwan Johnson, but he was limited today in practice.
Yeah, I know there's something wrong with him, too.
Kendre Miller practiced in full on Wednesday.
I think he's on IR, or they just pulled him off or about to.
They just recently designated him to return, so this was a full practice, and he's been designated to return. So I could see them wanting to get a look at him in his last few games.
It's something you need to know. Like, he might be a good guy for, like, your Super Bowl. Like, do you really need to run Kamara into the ground in week 17 and 18 of the season if you're the Saints?
It's over.
Giving them
you're
money.
Not going anywhere.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you get a good look at Miller, see if you need to draft one or not.
Bub Means officially limited on Wednesday with an ankle. He's also been out for several weeks. He was also designated to return. So it doesn't look as positive for him, but they need another receiver. And
I would say their skill position stuff is a mess.
Yeah.
I mean,
prior to getting hurt, he was actually starting to.
No, he looked pretty good.
Yeah, catch some balls.
Did some stuff. Yeah.
As you mentioned earlier in the show, Trevor Lawrence with the concussion officially placed on injury reserve. That will shut him down for the season.
Yeah, that's a wrap. I mean, they're in line, gets first overall pick. Do you have a hard time starting like Thomas or Ingram or the backs? Their skill guys are all pretty fantasy relevant.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't help.
It's not great. It's not what they were with Lawrence. But
yeah.
It's okay.
It's okay. I don't think it's
the receivers especially, because they're going to be in catch-up mode constantly. Their defense is awful.
Mac Jones has been okay. I mean, he's put up some numbers.
Yeah. Mostly in catch-up mode.
Mostly in catch-up
Blake
mode.
Bortles-like performance.
Exactly. Very Jaguar-esque.
Treylon Burks with an ACL will miss the remainder of the season.
It's pretty close to saying he's in bust neighborhood. He doesn't see the field too much either.
Jalen Coker with the quad injury, he practiced in full on Wednesday.
Okay.
That's somebody to not forget about.
No, I actually just traded for him yesterday in a dynasty league I'm rebuilding. I think he's got a bright future, but now all of a sudden the receiver position is a little crowded. We talked about Thielen yesterday. I'm sure Legette's going to get plenty of time. Former Panther wide receiver just got suspended. Former Steeler.
Deontay Johnson suspended for a game by the Ravens for conduct detrimental to the team. Apparently, on the release, when they talked about it, they said he refused to go into the game.
How does that happen? Right. And then you mentioned this off the air. They got to bye this week, and then he's suspended, and season's almost over.
Are they going to say stay away from the organization here for a week?
Yeah.
Or?
I mean, do you cut him?
I don't know. Jatavian Sanders with that neck injury. Officially limited on Wednesday.
Okay, so it looks like they're really pushing these young guys to finish out the season strong.
If he gets back into it, they were throwing him the ball.
No, I think that offense is relevant.
Amari Cooper with a wrist logged a full practice on Wednesday. Curtis Samuel with a foot was limited.
Okay.
So
is Amari Cooper a fantasy starter every week? No doubt.
I can't look at what happened in last week's game and say one way or the other.
I know. It's tough. And it's a perfect example for like Mike Williams. I mean, these receivers that change teams that late, it's hard to get on board, man.
It really is. Yeah.
Especially, and Cooper had some injuries,
Devontae Smith with a hamstring practiced on Wednesday.
Okay. I mean, they could use him. He's been out a little bit. Goddard's probably, I don't know what Goddard's situation is, but it doesn't sound good.
The Bengals signed Cade York to their practice squad because Evan McPherson expected to miss a few weeks with a groin injury. That's significant because Evan McPherson gets to kick a lot, and they play the Cowboys this week.
Yeah, I guess
Cade York's
having
going to be
their
kicking.
kicker's not a bad pickup.
Not the worst pickup.
6 teams on bye, yeah.
He's not great, but he's going to get opportunities.
Yeah, I'd say the offense is really good.
It's
There's
an indoor,
a lot of points in that game.
Yeah. So it's not the worst pivot.
And he's been in the league, too. I mean, I expect him not to go 0-for-3.
While we're on the subject of kickers, Matthew Wright signed to the Chiefs' 53-man roster. He'll be their third kicker. Well, he already kicked last week. He was 4 of 5 on his field goal attempts last week. That's good.
Yeah, that's good.
5 attempts in one game. Spencer Schrader was placed on IR with a hamstring injury. He was the guy who was replacing
Okay. He was in between Butker
and so it looks like Matthew Wright's going to be the Chiefs kicker until Harrison Butker returns from IR.
That's another one. Like, I know their offense isn't as good as people think it is, but that's not a bad kicker to own for fantasy.
They do kick field goals. They don't score touchdowns all the time.
Yeah, they move the ball.
Yeah. Keon Coleman with a wrist injury, limited in practice on Wednesday.
That whole tight end receiver situation in Buffalo is kind of a stay away for me, considering what you have to pay for them and all those things. But it'd be nice if it shook itself out a little bit better.
Dalton Kincaid was limited on Wednesday. He hasn't played since week 10. So we'll see where that goes for him. Drew Lock going to get the start for the Giants this week.
I guess it's better than DeVito, but I mean,
he runs a little bit.
Yeah, I'm just thinking for Wan'Dale Robinson and Neighbors.
I mean, he actually throws the ball to Neighbors. He doesn't ignore him for a half. So
yeah. Is Wan'Dale Robinson even useful anymore? It sure seems like no. I mean, you got to be high completion percentage guys.
Yeah. Alan Lazard with the chest injury had his practice window opened on Wednesday.
Okay. I'm not real excited about him for fantasy.
Rodgers does like him.
He does. He caught a lot of touchdowns early in the year.
Breece Hall with the knee injury, not practicing Wednesday. He did the same thing last week, and he went and played.
The way it works,
although he did lose 2 fumbles, or fumbled twice in that game. So, the Browns have signed quarterback Bailey Zappi.
Real quick on Hall. Yeah. It's a little early for this conversation, but some of these awful teams, running backs that have bumps and bruises, might they not be around for fantasy Super Bowls? Or, sometimes you'll see these guys get shut down late in the season.
Well, that's why when you have guys like that, that's when you handcuff.
Braylon Allen is.
That's when you handcuff.
Yeah, you want to see the younger guy. Allen's a great example for that.
Especially teams that have already had their bye week.
There's
no reason not to handcuff if that's one of your top backs or the top back on your team. Josh Reynolds was waived by the Broncos and claimed by the Jaguars.
Yeah, he's not a bad player. I don't think he's relevant for Mac Jones throwing to Josh Reynolds. That doesn't
get
me playoff wins in my fantasy league.
No. Keyshawn Vaughn added to the 49ers practice squad.
Okay, see the small undersized
former Tampa Bay back.
Oh, I was thinking Deuce Vaughn. I guess is the one I was thinking of, the Cowboy. Okay.
Yeah. Keyshawn's had some moments.
Yeah, there was a lot of buzz with him when he came out, but never quite put together.
They also signed Patrick Taylor Jr. to their practice squad, so they added 2 running backs to the practice.
One of them,
somebody's getting elevated.
Yeah, somebody's getting elevated. I mean, they lost 2, so you got to add 2.
Yeah. How about this one? Finally, Marshawn Lattimore on track to return in Week 15.
Wow. Make a trade for him at the trade deadline and still hasn't played a snap for you.
It's been 5 or 6 weeks now. They've had him on the roster.
I mean, what's different about him than some of these other trades? At least he's under contract. Yeah, that's a big long-term move. But if you get him revved up for the playoffs.
Yeah. DJ Reader considered day-to-day.
Okay. I need to look into the Lion injuries more. There's a couple of them out there.
Doesn't look like they're going to have Taylor Decker this week.
Okay.
Looks like Carlton Davis could return for them in Week 14. Of course, that's a Thursday night game. So, they're starting to get a little...
Yeah, a little bit better news, it sounds like.
Some of it.
They cut Reynolds.
That's pretty much it for the fantasy news of the day. This Deontay Johnson stuff, the people who ran out and picked him up hoping that he was going to suddenly become fantasy or still be, if you had him on your roster from Carolina, you were happy because he was getting the football, and he was happy. And then when he goes to Baltimore and he's not getting the football and he's not even getting on the field, he's not happy.
Well, it's not like he had an opportunity to get on the field, and he refused it. What's up with that? You're getting paid to play football, and if you're asked to go in the field, you go in the field. I mean, unless you have a knee or something, that you think they misdiagnosed. But how does that conversation happen on the sideline?
I don't know.
Not pretty. And Ravens have bigger fish to fry than worry about the new guy. I wonder if he plays at all for them.
That's why when you make some trades like that, especially, when you have 53 guys in a locker room, your head coach has to be able to handle things well within the scheme of everything.
No, yeah.
People are asking, why isn't Mike Williams playing? He's playing. They're not throwing him the ball a whole lot yet. Doesn't mean that they won't or that's not going to happen, but he is playing. But that's not been there's been none of this kind of stuff.
No, right.
I'm sure Preston Smith wasn't happy with his role in Green Bay, and asked for a trade.
I don't think he was rocking the boat there or anything.
Yeah,
but Johnson seems to be rocking the boat in Baltimore.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing that kind of one of the dangers when you trade for somebody. Teams don't want to get rid of guys for no reason.
Of course,
in a lot of cases.
I mean, obviously there's some instances where probably not going to sign him. His contract's up. We're not doing anything. Dump him at the trade deadline. Let's get young. Sometimes it's just I want to get this guy out of here because he's a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
And I wonder if Deontay's quickly going down that path.
That might be the way it's headed there for him. But, Matt, that's going to do it for the Fantasy Football Focus. Let's
I
get to a break.
wonder what his interest will be in the offseason.
Might be.
I mean, his stock has gone down dramatically. And his contract and all that stuff. I mean, who's going to be calling?
Yeah, for sure. Let's get to a break. He is Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley. You're listening to The Drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. Matt and I will be back right after this. And we are back here on The Drive. I am Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson. And, Matt, we got to see the debut of Hard Knocks last night, looking at the AFC North. And, of course, the Steelers were featured prominently on that one because they played a fellow AFC North opponent.
Yeah.
And a lot of interesting stuff coming out of that, including you get to see how Mike Tomlin likes to or is capable of pushing players' buttons. Him standing in front of the room, commanding the room, and just kind of the lesson that he gives each week. And he was asked earlier in the week, do you worry about your message getting old or stale? He's like, look, this is a short-term business for these players.
Yeah.
And if you look at it, it's pretty. We talked about this in the preseason before the season started. I think it was like 26 new guys on the roster or something like that. I mean, that's almost half your roster turns over from the previous year.
So a lot to take away there, too. I thought Tomlin was the star of the show. And frankly, if this was Ravens Nation Radio, I would have said the same thing. I thought him and Joe Burrow were the most impressive two people featured in this whole thing. And it's 1 hour, and that's not a knock on the other three head coaches. See how the other episodes go, but I'm sure Tomlin will do just fine. But it made me... couple things. I know Tomlin has his critics, and if you want to criticize his clock management, go right ahead. I mean, that's valid. I get it. He's not perfect. But I think if you watch that, you have a better understanding for why he wins games. I mean, his message to the team was great. One-on-one with Cam Hayward walking into the locker room. One-on-one with Pickens.
I thought it was interesting when the coaches are all sitting around watching tape.
That's
together.
where I was going next.
Yeah.
Like his knowledge of the game is so extreme.
The attention to detail.
Right. Like we know this is going to happen. This is going to happen. Like if you talk to Wolf or Tunch or those guys, Chuck Noll could have coached the defensive backs or the tight ends or the running backs. And I think Tomlin's exactly the same way, or I know, and he's praising Jamar Chase. Look at Jamar Chase come out of his break here on this in-cutting route. That's an amazing angle. And, Burrow's going to be, great respect for the opponent and how they can beat you.
It's going to be a problem if we allow him to step up into the pocket.
Yep.
And lo and behold, it became a problem allowing him to step up into the pocket. And then they guys, we talked about this.
Yeah.
Let's not let this guy do this to us.
And I probably going to watch it again. But I think when he was walking off the field with Hayward, as I referenced, he said something like, as long as we contain Chase Brown, who isn't their best player, and don't let Burrow step up in the pocket, the offense doesn't have to could score 0 points, and we're going to be okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, these are the things we have to take away. It's not just Chase is awesome. We can't, everyone knows that.
Right.
So his knowledge of the game is really came through in that episode.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, with the stuff with Herbig, and we'll get to hear from Nick Herbig here a little bit in the final segment of the show. I talked to him about the episode last night. Just driving home the point that, hey, you got one of the big matchups this week.
Yeah.
You got Orlando Brown this week, and if you win that matchup, we're going to win this game.
We're going to win this game. Yeah.
And then not only saying it to him every single time he saw him during the week, saying it on the sideline during the game, saying it in the team meeting.
Yeah.
Calling out a second-year guy like, hey, dude, you got to win this. We expect you to win this.
And
We're not hoping you win this. We expect you to win this.
And he's not saying it to every player in every matchup.
Yeah.
I mean, he knew that was a critical one. There's going to be a lot of one-on-one. Of course, TJ's going to get a ton of attention, and with a young right tackle in particular, if we can win that matchup 1v1 a high percentage of the time, we're going to be really tough to beat.
Yeah. Lo and behold.
Right. And it was a key to the game.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You get the strip sack and touchdown off of that, and it's like, and you see Tomlin's reaction on the sideline to that, just like,
That's what
I was right.
That's what we're talking about here.
That's
yeah.
what we're talking about. And then he pulls Herbig aside and says, "Hey, that's what we, that was the expectation. That's who you are."
Right. No, I got a kick out of the episode, and part of it was I spent a year in the Browns facility too, and I like the Ravens facility. It's all brick and kind of old
Out
looking.
in the middle of nowhere.
Right. I kind of like how they do things too, but Bengals not as much. But no, I think it's going to be a good series too.
When you see something like that, it does kind of point out the differences between the other three teams and the Bengals.
Yeah. I mean, I have never been in the Bengals facility, but I spent a ton of time in the Browns one.
Their facility is the stadium.
Yeah.
They're one of the few teams that are still working out at their stadium.
Yeah.
The practice fields, when you're driving into Cincinnati from the airport in Kentucky, you come across the bridge, and their practice fields are right there on the right next to the stadium.
Mm-hmm.
They now have an indoor bubble.
It's kind of like how Three Rivers used to be, right? Didn't
Kinda,
the players
yeah.
like in their cleats walk
Had
across?
to walk across the street,
like
and
Lambert and those
yeah.
guys. Yeah, right.
But their practice, their quote unquote indoor practice facility is basically just a
Bubble over that.
Yeah. And it's about 3 blocks away down the street from the stadium, so the players have to walk all the way
3
over
blocks
there.
down the street.
Not that I mean,
Yeah, but these are billion-dollar, multi-billion-dollar organizations.
walking in your spikes on the like.
Yeah. I mean, where the Steelers used to practice way back when, I was referring to, is now a parking lot, because it
Yeah.
should be a parking lot, because
what
it's
it
next
should
to the stadium, right?
I can remember like when the Steelers used to, when they wanted to practice on grass when they were still headquartered at Three River Stadium,
Mm-hmm.
they had to go past. There was the warehouse. I think it was Kaufman's warehouse or whatever. Walk across the freeway to get to this 50-yard grass practice facility.
50-yard one, yeah.
Made of and so it wasn't even a full field. And it's kind of the same thing that the Bengals are doing now. Well, the Steelers graduated away from that 30 years ago.
Since before I was in this business. Right, yeah, 100%. And say what you want about the Browns, but that facility we didn't want for anything. I mean, they spent a lot of money.
They showed them. They had the facility. They had the room set up for elevation room.
Oh, yeah,
Like
yeah.
the lower
right.
oxygen level, and you could go in there and work out before the that kind of stuff. Like,
yeah, they spent $1, and like little things like if I went into WVU with a scuff on my shoes, I heard about it. Like, come get a new pair of shoes. Like anything you wanted all the time. I mean, it's a multi-billion-dollar organization.
yeah, Bengals don't.
They don't run it that way.
They don't
more
it's not
mom and
that way
pop
for
than
them,
that. Yeah.
Which is in some ways is good, but other ways bad.
Sure. I mean, it's probably less attractive to several athletes that if you're picking between 3 teams, they might be last.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know. We talked about it after the Bengals game. I could see rocky roads ahead for both Ohio organizations for different reasons.
Yeah. And, just some of the ways that the coaches kind of handled the room as well. And not even just the head coaches. Though there was the
Browns O-line coach.
The Browns O-line coach yelling and screaming at his offensive line about, and just nonsensical stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't quite get that. That was not painted in a great light there in that one. But no, I was very impressed with Tomlin. I liked when he was sitting there watching film with the coaches too. And if that's what they're showing you, think of the insights that they're not.
Right. Yeah, they were willing to give you that part of
it.
Yeah. I also thought it was interesting to see some of the sideline stuff with Russell Wilson and the way he reacted to different things, like the interception. He's right back and like, guys, we're fine. We're good. We're good.
Yeah.
And then they score the touchdown, and he's going to each offensive lineman and shaking their hands. Hey, good job, guys. Way to do that. That's,
Mm-hmm. And you know this better than I do, but it sounded like a lot of quotes right after that Cincinnati game where, man, Russ was more enthusiastic and more positive than ever. You know what I mean? And he's getting really comfortable here, too.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it.
Right.
And and he's comfortable in his own skin with who he
knows
is.
who he is, and how this league works. And, right.
It just leads me back to the whole Denver situation and some of the character assassination that went on with him. Oh, he's a phony. He's this. It's fake. I'm like, I don't think you can fake that.
I don't think anything he's done here
I haven't
fake
seen
it all
like
to me.
that.
I mean, I kind of thought first day of camp or whatever, I'm like, of course everyone, all eyes are on him, might as well. I'm like, is this guy really a diva? Just, I'm happy to be here, blah, blah. I'm like, that's not the impression I get. I mean, I'm not best friends with him, don't get me wrong, but just the way who he's hanging with, how he's hanging with them, body, all that stuff, mannerisms, they respect him.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it goes back to, it's kind of the similar respect that we saw in the Steelers locker room when they signed Michael Vick.
Okay, yeah.
And Michael Vick was clearly at the end of his career. He was done, but he was
a legend.
He's a legend.
He's a legend.
He's
right.
a guy,
he was one of the first of his kind.
This is the guy who was on the cover of Madden, and this is a guy who was, these guys when they were growing up, that's who they played with. You wanted to be Michael Vick because you could just do anything.
Right. I mean, he was a superhuman. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, a lot of those guys grew up with loving that guy. Fathead, posters of him on the wall type of guy. Right.
But you see that with just different guys in that locker room and how they kind of deferred him, and they did with Ben Roethlisberger as well.
Oh, I'm sure.
I mean, it was just, that's.
But Ben never had to come to a new team,
right?
You know what I mean?
This was coming in from the outside and being okay. How do you handle this? And I just think he's handled it really well.
It makes me wonder, and I know it's not what we're talking about, but Kirk Cousins has really struggled in Atlanta, and I'm not saying they undermined him by drafting Penix, but you had enough. Imagine if it was Wilson and you had a first-round quarterback there too.
It's a different dynamic.
It's a much different dynamic. Like that's the guy who's going to replace you, and you're new. You've had a great career, but you haven't put any pelts on the wall here yet. You don't have that respect. Yeah. I mean, if Wilson was sitting there with Penix in the room,
it was kind of similar though with Fields.
A little bit.
In that, you have a guy with Fields is a high pedigree guy. He's a former first-round draft pick and has done a lot of good things in the league. And we've dealt with it on this show with people, wanted Fields to continue to be the starter. But those two had a relationship because of Wilson. Wilson had they'd reached out to him when he was at Ohio State and Georgia, and they had formed a relationship there. That and I talked to Fields about it. He goes, he was a guy that I admired, the way he played the game because it was a similar style to the way I played.
Mm-hmm. No, I think there's a lot to be said for that, as opposed to just fantasy football. We're going to put both you guys in the same locker. That's not how it works, especially with quarterbacks, of course.
Because it's the Highlander. There can be only one. There's one leader of the team.
If there's one defensive lineman and the other one is his best buddy in the room, okay, we'll be fine. We'll figure it out. But the quarterbacks need to. They can have a rivalry. They can compete, of course. If they don't, there's something wrong with them. I mean,
you still want to start.
Yeah. I mean, but I think that they handled that dynamic really, really well.
Yeah, and I think part of it is because of those two guys in that relationship that they had.
100%.
So that was.
I wonder how how that feels. With a new guy.
Yeah.
Especially coming in with injuries, you can't even prove yourself.
The other cool thing was that Tomlin telling the players, hey, if you guys don't have a place to go for Thanksgiving, come to my house.
That was cool, yeah. And the Hayward brothers, too. Happened to be Thanksgiving week, which was cool, too. And I have a feeling Cam's going to be pretty impressive in this thing, too.
Yeah. I mean, Cam's Cam.
Yeah.
I kind of joke with him today because Tomlin said yesterday at his press conference that Cam's been here for 25 years. I'm like, I walked over to Cam today. I'm like, you gonna let Mike hang 25 years now on you? Because he just likes to say that stuff because he knows it ticks me off. And like,
whatever motivates you, right?
Again, pushing the right buttons.
Pushing the buttons, yeah.
And
I'm sure that they probably heard about it going into Cincinnati on a 10-day rest, and they're probably still hearing about it, especially that D-line. Remember how you played against the Brownies? Yeah. Go watch that Browns tape. You happy with that?
Yeah.
I bet it's still fresh on their mind.
A little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit, yeah. As Carl Dunbar said, when Daddy's not happy, nobody's happy. And
Yeah,
they were not happy about that one.
No, it was good stuff. I urge everyone to check it out. And I thought Tomlin was kind of the star of the show.
Yeah, and if you have this theory, and it's still out there because I get it. Terry Bradshaw said however many years ago, Mike Tomlin's a cheerleader. And I still see that thrown about. Oh, he's just a cheerleader coach.
You have no clue then.
Watch these shows
Right.
and tell me that all he does is cheerlead.
He has a pulse of everything that goes on in the organization.
Yeah.
I mean, big time. In a Belichick kind of way. Knows
Yeah.
every little bit that's happening. Right.
I mean, you
quite
see
the
him
difference.
sitting down with Danny Smith and talking about protections and things of that nature. Like,
Sure. Yeah.
He's got his finger on the pulse of every room in that building.
Big time. As much as any head coach going right now, I think, to be very honest with you. I mean, he's I forget what Mike Lombardi calls it. He's the chief fixer-upper guy. Like puts out fires. Like there's so many fires we never see because they don't get raging out of control because he puts them out immediately. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's a big job of a head coach.
It really is, and it's. I think it's a big reason why the guys who still want to be play callers on
It's
one
tough,
side of the
man.
ball. I think that's why it doesn't work.
I think it's brutal. I mean, if you're Andy Reid, I mean, okay, you're a special guy, but you're biting off more than you can chew. I mean, you don't see it anymore, but it used to be. Some of these coaches would also be GMs. I'm like, what do you? You're asking too much, man.
Yeah, you can't. You don't have time to scout during the season.
No, right. I mean, you got to defer, and I mean, it's not even the same skill set necessarily. I mean, like, just be the head coach.
Yeah.
Be a CEO type.
And the thing, when Tomlin was asked about his potential to burn out in this business on Tuesday, and he said, "Look, I'm not going to burn out on this." He said, "This is my hobby. This is what I love, and this is my hobby.
Mm-hmm.
Football is what I do."
Yeah. I mean, my life's way different than Mike Tomlin's, but people ask me all the time, like, when are you going to retire? I'm like, I guess when people stop wanting to listen to me, because this is what I would, if I was an
what else
accountant.
you going to do?
Right. I mean, if I was an accountant, my free time would be doing NFL stuff. So,
Right.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's kind of the same deal. If that's what you love, great.
Yeah, and he certainly does love it.
He's good at it.
If you watch this show, and you got to get HBO to do that, but if you watch the show, I think you'll come away with a different, just
I think you'd have a better
general
understanding
feeling, a
of
general
why
understanding of how
wins
things
games
work.
and why he's been so successful. It's not an accident. And another non-losing season, win a playoff game. Like, do you know how hard it is to go season after season without having a down year? I mean, it's in this game with injuries and picking late in the first round. You don't pick the top 5 ever. I mean, it's brutal.
Yeah, Cleveland's going to have another top 5 pick this year.
Yeah.
Cincinnati's going to probably have another top 10 pick this year.
Jacksonville's probably going to have the first pick overall 3 out of 5 years.
And you still stink.
Then you still stink.
Yeah.
I mean, what if you gave that to Tomlin?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, when he talks about on the sideline with he's been mic'd up in the past, and he's joking with Chase Young. I never plan on being high enough to draft somebody like you.
Yeah, which is a compliment.
Yeah,
and it's also a little pat on my own back that we don't pick in the top.
We're
5.
never there.
Right. Yeah,
and yet somehow you still get the Cam Haywards of the world. You still get the T.J. Watts of the world.
All these guys, right? Absolutely. Yep.
It's not bad. Not bad at all.
But I urge everyone to check it out. It's good.
Absolutely. One of the guys that again was featured during the show was Herbig, and there was a lot there to pick through with him, and so I wanted to talk to him about that today, and found him in the locker room. So we'll hear what he had to say about some of the stuff that happened in the show, and some of the stuff that was picked up in the show. Anyways, didn't really happen in the show. The show,
right.
The show just happens. The football is what's taking place. The show's just there, kind of
taking our
seeing all that stuff.
Too while they're
while they're at that. But they're just capturing the moments. So I did talk to Herbig about that today. We'll hear that when we come back. He is Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley. You're listening to The Drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. We'll be back to finish up the show right after this. Welcome back. I am Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson. And Matt, one of the guys we just kind of touched on a little bit there in the previous segment, talking about the Hard Knocks episode last night, was Nick Herbig. And the way Mike Tomlin handled him a little bit in that show, I thought was interesting. And so I saw Herbig in the locker room today, and I said, I'm going to go ask him some questions about that. Actually, I went looking for him in the locker room. And
good, yeah.
Found him there
Good
early.
guy to scope out for sure.
Absolutely, and
he's been phenomenal.
He's been on a bit of a tear
since he joined the league. I mean, just pass rush. I mean, efficiency per pass rush snap is really, really high, and there's no knock on anybody else, but he's gonna be hard to take off the field.
Yeah, you got to figure out ways to do that. And,
Yeah.
I expect that they'll find some ways to do that.
I would lighten TJ's load a little bit. We got a big picture to think about here. Maybe 10 snaps less a game and put Herbig over there or something.
Yeah. So, and he's capable of doing those kind of things.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to pat myself on the head here, but I'm going to.
Do it.
He was my dude going into that draft 2 years ago.
Oh, yeah, I remember. Right.
I was a big Herbig fan. The motor just runs constantly, and he is a nightmare to block.
He really is. He really got the better of Orlando Brown, too.
Yeah, just tore him up a little bit. But let's hear what Nick Herbig had to say.
Obviously watching Hard Knocks last night, and it seemed like all week long Mike was telling you that you were going to beat Orlando Brown for a big play. Was that the case, or did they kind of play that up a little bit too much?
No, it was, that was it literally every day. He emphasized that. He made sure he told me that that's going to be me versus him. And he literally told me that every time he saw me.
And it seemed like right before you went out and got the strip sack, he had said it again. Was that happening throughout the game, or was it?
Yeah, it was. Every time I saw him that whole week, it was just the same thing.
Did that does that kind of reinforce kind of what you're? You got to beat the guy you're going to get going up against, but
for
him
sure.
continuing to say it just.
It definitely emphasizes it, and that's all you're thinking about. See him come out and tell you it's going to be me versus him all day. We're going to find out.
Does that help you kind of conceptualize and visualize it a little bit more?
Oh, for sure. Especially when Coach Tomlin is saying that to you, it's not like it's no disrespect to any of the other coaches, but it's Coach Tomlin saying that. So
he knows your matchup's a key one.
Yeah, and him pointing that out to you in front of the team is we're gonna find out. I'm putting you on this pedestal, and we're gonna see if you're really about that action. That's how I feel.
Is it? Just him. He seems to push the right buttons with everybody.
Yeah, he definitely does. He knows how to push those buttons.
With Alec coming back now, you expect to still get those kind of reps?
I'm not.
They've used all three guys at the same time. Now you got four.
Yeah, I'm not too sure. I just know that whenever my number is called, I gotta uphold that standard.
You have obviously, what do you got? 3 forced fumbles in 3 straight games.
Something like that.
Yeah. Have you ever had a streak like this?
I don't know. I just like to win football games. As long as we win, I'm happy. Care less.
But obviously, you've been a big part of that. You got Derrick Henry to fumble. He doesn't fumble a lot, and you get your Burrow.
I just think that's just the culture here, and my coach is emphasizing that, and I have a great position coach in Denzel and Dunbar, and they coach me well. They're hard on me, and it's what it is expected here in Pittsburgh.
That was Steelers outside linebacker Nick Herbig with me earlier today, and
good stuff.
As you heard, Tomlin knew what buttons to push with him, and it worked.
Yep, and I think it also helps to have big brother figure around, and I'm not even talking about his brother. I forgot he has a brother on the team. I was talking about TJ, but pretty nice dynamic, and I'm pretty psyched to see. Hoping it happens, but all 4 of those outside linebackers all on the same field together at once. It's a pretty good group.
Yeah, you could do a little. I don't even know what package you would call
some kind of NASCAR type of thing. Right. Chase
then you
got
to
take.
You got to take Cam Hayward off the field. I'm not real psyched about that.
No,
either,
but it's a nice problem to have that you got too many good edge rushers.
Yeah. You can just come at them in waves. But Matt, that's going to do it for the show today.
Yeah, good stuff.
Absolutely.
2 guests today.
Absolutely. We thank Jimmy Rooney for stopping by and joining us here in the studio. We want to thank Bob Labriola for stopping by as well, as usual. And, for my partner, Matt Williamson, for Justin Miller here on site running the Justin Miller hotline, and for Tyler Vittmeyer here. Threw him a little curveball today with the in-studio guest.
Popping in.
You can check that out on YouTube. I am Dale Lolley. We thank you for listening to this edition of The Drive on the Steelers Audio Network.
Steelers football happens here. The Pittsburgh Steelers Audio Network.